in the industry. And the weakness of the industry was we weren't taking care of our legacy products. We weren't making that transition once we entered the electronic age and then onto the microelectronics and microprocessors. We did not make that tie back to the old control systems, the old way of doing business. So what we did is started with our own devices, meaning the mod product and the micro DCI product, and then we moved on to some of the other products as time went on. So what you have here in the overall pack series is first the legacy controls. This is where we take our own controls and that of some of our competitors, and we create a product using one of our platforms, either the micro DCI platform or the mod platform, to recreate as close as we can to what that device was. So DCI pack is basically going to the legacy 53 MC 1000, 2000, 4000, and Chameleon from the Fisher and Porter micro DCI. The 7000 is the basically 7000, which was prevalent in the 80s in the power industry mostly. The M30 Retro Pack is the Taylor ABB Mod 30, which is the predecessor to the Mod 30 ML, and the Mod 30 ML is the basis for the 353 Retro Pack. The SLC Retro Pack is the Bailey Loop Command series, the SLC and CLC, which were prevalent all through the 80s and right up until the late 90s. Actually, the product line was discontinued right before ABB bought Bailey, Fisher and Porter in 1999. There's also where I have custom and SPRs. Customs are products we will engineer that we can recreate, and they get assigned an SPR, which is a special product request. That special product request allows us to make it traceable and use it in industries such as power, nuclear, chemical, and Department of Defense. The app packs are really our pre-configured packages. We have them for the boiler industry, the steam pack, your water and waste industry with water pack and food pack for your edible products. Steam pack, I'll take that one because that's a quick and easy one. Look at every aspect of a boiler. You have a drum, you have fuel, you have air, you have O2, and other things. So I'll take drum pack, for instance. Drum pack, you to select one element, two element, or three element. It allows you to select totalization of your feed water, totalization of your steam flow. It allows you to select your economizer control, and you do all this through the front face. You tune it through the front face. You can set up your characterization tables through the front face. So it's a very flexible product, very easy product to work with. We've done that with each one of the pack series, the app pack series, meaning the steam, water, and food. And in the accessories are and options, View Pack is our HMI and our SCADA system that's pre-configured to work with one of the previous mentioned packs. And Tool Pack is just our ability to package our software in a laptop. So it can be ordered, used in the field, and there's a couple different versions of that. So we'll jump into that next. The 353, why did we create this and what's our objective? It's what all the Retro Pack series is. It's to protect you against obsolescence. You have a panel, it's a working panel, you're comfortable with it, you like the way it operates, so you're able to take the controllers, whichever Retro Pack series is, out of the panel, slide in one of the MicroMod Retro Packs, and essentially go back to operating in a very similar function. For the operators, it's easy for them. The transition is not seamless because we're let's face it, we're all products of our environment and we form habits, but they closely approximate the operation that they previously had in one of the previous products. You want to reuse that control engineering. You spend a lot of money in the plants to develop a working operation that is efficient. In this case, if it was a boiler, it'd be fuel. If it were chemicals and dosing, whatever it may be, you have an efficient process. You spent time and money on that. We can reuse that. It allows for the engineers that are going to be configuring this, or the process engineers that are going to be working with it, their learning time, that curve is reduced substantially because they're familiar with how the controller operates, because we use a lot of the same functionality. You get to reuse the panel, so you're not throwing away a panel, you're not re-engineering the panel. Because we use one platform, your spare parts are reduced. Because we can essentially slide this in and have it up and running in a very short length of time, the overall disruption to the process is limited. And it also lowers your overall investment to implement a change because you're reusing so much. In this case, the hardware. It's a similar form, fit, and function. Part of this is because it's us, but people have told us the screens give them more information. They're brighter. There's a little more to them. Very similar configuration technique in the sense that we actually recreated the 352, 353 function blocks and factory configurations in the 353 retro pack. You have a couple of different communication networks. The Mod 30 ML is considered one of the most reliable integrated process controllers in the market today. And we can certainly highlight that later on in the presentation, but we can actually show you with hard numbers. And if someone does not want to configure it themselves, they can certainly have us configure it. We use a flat rate configuration schedule, and it comes with a couple different options for you. Now into the actual I/O. I'm basing this on the 353, but you can see it would carry over for the 352 as well. The base product, the Mod 30 ML, has built-in analog inputs. It has two. These are universal inputs. So you can, if you want current, if you want voltage, if you want an RTD, if you want to use a thermocouple, you can linearize all the different types of thermocouple. There's a onboard temperature compensator so that you don't have to worry about cold junction. So that's all taken care of for you. It has the digitals, it has the relays. And then we have the expansion portion where we add extra analogs ins, and you can add extra outs. The module based, which are what the digitals are and the expansion analogs are user selectable on the analog side. So you have a choice when you purchase a current module or the current modules that come with it. Those three analog inputs can deliver transmitter power supply. They can just be passive 4 to 20s, receiving a 4 to 20 signal rather than powering the 4 to 20 signal. They can also be a current output. So what you're looking at here on the right-hand side of the slide is actually what the modules look like. Your yellow modules are your digital modules. The red and black are also digitals. The white module happens to be an analog. And what you're seeing out in front on the white module is actually how you do. The module determines if it's an input, an output, it's powering a transmitter, or it's not. And the blue module is a communication module. In this case, it's a communication module for Ethernet. Here's essentially what the back planes look like. On the RetroPack side, all the way to the right is what the back plane would look like if it were Ethernet. The one to the left of it is a standard back plane for just peer-to-peer and RS-485 communication. And of course, if you're familiar with the 353, you know what that back plane looks like, and the 352 has some similarities. It comes in a couple different versions. It comes with the standard version that would slide in through the front, right in the same hole that you used for the 353 or 352. It also has what we call a split architecture or remote faceplate version. So in the event that you would want to mount the body of the controller so it's more accessible to you and you didn't have to slide it out, you could mount it behind the panel, mount the faceplate in that panel cutout, and then just the cable would allow you to mount it up to 6 feet away. It also has a big brother, actually, which was the original Mod product. It's called ModSell. It's a 19-inch rack mount. It has more than twice the amount of I/O that a Mod 30ML. It uses all the same function codes as the 353 RetroPack. The difference is, in the display screen you're seeing on the right with the 4 controller faces, is an HMI and how you would communicate to the ModSell. The ModSell can be networked in and communicate with a Mod 30ML through its peer-to-peer. It can actually, the Mod 30ML or 353 RetroPack can display information that's on that ModSell. It can use through its peer-to-peer again. It can bring information in for sequencing. It can bring information in for totalization. There's a multitude of things you can do on the ModSell. And it has the ability, say for like the Dayton VA, that is 3 fully metered boilers, it operates 1 boiler. Everything is on 1 ModSell. So they're extremely flexible. The displays, the one on the left is what you're familiar with the 353. The one in the center is actually, or on the top right, is what it looks like in reality. What you're looking at, if you look at the top right on that MicroMod display that says drum level, you're actually looking at a 3-element drum pack. And the way I know that, if you look where it says AUT for auto, just below it, it says 3-element. If that were set up like a true 3-element, you know, at some point in time, as the steam flow lessens and lessens, you tend to drop it back to a single element. And at that point, whatever that break point is, that 3EL would transition to 1EL. If you wanted to change where that switchover is, you can actually do that from the front face. It's in the tuning page, and it's behind a password. So very protected. Okay, why don't we take a minute and see if any questions have popped up. I've either put you all to sleep or
unmuted.
It doesn't look like anybody chatted in yet.
Yeah, I have 2 questions, Jeff.
shoot.
Do you have the pulsar knob equivalent on the 353?
No, we don't. The way we do it, it's with the up-down arrows. The up-down arrows allow you to move through each one of your integers showing, and when you press either the up or down, you are able to select fast or slow, and it'll increment up from that point, but it is not like the more Siemens.
Okay, the second question is your peer-to-peer network the replacement for the LIL network, LIL network?
It's not interchangeable with it, but it emulates it. So what I mean by that is you can't take a 353 retro pack and put it in the middle of three 353s and connect it and have it talk on the same peer-to-peer.
Okay, and then the last question I have is what solutions do you have for the more 351?
Same thing, it's a retro pack. We just downgrade the 352, but there is a way to do it. Actually, we haven't released it yet, but we're trying to get up to speed having all of the more products that were out at one time being represented in the retro pack, or what will be the 353 retro pack family. We've done 351s already, we just haven't formalized it.
Okay, that's all the questions I have so far.
And somebody asked the time frame for the 351. We can actually do it now. If pressed, I could have something formally in front of you by Monday. So let's move on. Control capability, this isn't that awfully different from anyone else. It's a PID control. It has advanced algorithms. It has actually, you can select between 18 different algorithms that were created to emulate one of the predecessors to the Taylor products and to the Foxborough product and to the Bailey product. So there's 18 plus algorithms, and many of those function very similar to the 352 and the 353. And basically what I explain to people, you can't really tell the difference in the speed and the execution of one of these algorithms without really using an oscilloscope. So we can approximate what's being done with one of the 352 or 353s. It has math and logic, has a pretty involved sequencer. It has a 60 segment characterizer. You can do timers and totals, real time, you can scale, you can filter. None of that is that different from anybody else. Here's where we're different from the 352 and the 353s. In the 352, as people who use it know, they got used to those FCOs, those pre-configured canned algorithms that they could just load in, put their spans in, ranges, whatever they need to, their alarms, and then they can go on. Very quick and easy. Or they could mix in function codes. 353 had its own set of FCOs and function codes. The problem was there was a lack of the ability to mix the two in some cases. Well, being that everything is based on the native programming tool that the mod uses, our Visual Application Designer, or VisApp, you are able to mix FCOs and FCs, whether it's a 352, a 353, you can mix in native programming from the mod. Since we've recreated the Bailey SLC and CLC, you could actually use Bailey function codes if you wanted. So it's very, very flexible and makes it a lot easier if you're familiar with one over the other and you prefer one over the other, you can mix and match. What we found through the years, we've had the SLC and the CLC out for about 12 years now, 13 years, that when I go to look at somebody who originally was hard set on, they wanted to use the Bailey function codes. When you go into the configuration, you find out they're using more and more of the native programmer. It's too early to say in the past couple years with the 353 if that is following suit, but the more people I work with on this, the more I'm finding out that they like the native programmer. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the function codes or FCOs that were created by Moore and then Siemens. It's the fact that they're not as much overkill because you get to select the different pieces and parts you want to put in them. But that comes down to personal preference, and this gives you the option to do it the way you want. With the peer-to-peer and Modbus, you have the ability to talk back and forth between the instruments, use the signal that might come into one instrument, and of course ship it off to the other, to just one other instrument, or maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that might be in the network. And then you're able to take that information and tie it to an HMI, tie it to a SCADA, bring it to a building control system through either Modbus or Ethernet. The Modbus plugs in the back of the controller in the center of the terminations, which you saw on earlier slides, but the communication conversion is actually done on board in a couple of the communication slots, and that's what the blue module is. So you're able to, through an OPC server, connect different devices together and have them all talk on the same network ultimately. This is just, it's in our specification sheet. It just shows you an error I made, but 352 and 353, what their dimensions are, what their I/O is, how their communication is, and compare it to the 353 retro pack. And it goes further and go on to the function, how it's programmed, and the standard features that are built into each unit. The Mod 30 ML has a couple of rather unique things. Every piece of I/O has a quality bit. You have the ability to leave that bit turned on, turn it off. You have the ability, depending on which one it is, to have it create events, create alarms, do something in the sequencing, maybe put the controller in manual, maybe put the controller in manual and send an output to a predetermined level. There are so many things you can do without actually losing the process. In your power failure and restart, you can set predetermined values. You have the ability to do cold start, warm starts, hot starts. And probably one of the more interesting things that it actually has short circuit protection on the I/O. So in the event that a wire were to become compromised, you would get an error, and it would tell you what that error is. It's a very elaborate messaging system, and that can be sent to a SCADA. It can be also displayed on an HMI. Now in the 353, there were pre-configured HMI displays. There actually are with the retro pack, or I should say with the pack series, steam, water, and food pack, but that can be tied into, by the time this year's out, we'll actually have it for the standard FCOs as well. And we have one called ViewPack, and I will be showing that to you briefly. There's a security part that you always want to look for with controllers. How is that memory maintained? Everybody's looking for, is it backed up on board? Well, of course they all are, and they all have some type of non-volatile memory. There's two other ways. If you own the configuration software, then obviously you can back it up into the software. If we configure any product for you, no matter what pack series it is, we always give you the database. It is our belief at MicroMod that you own that engineering. So we're just going to pass it on to you. We do keep a copy on a secure server. So in the event you ever lose yours, or in the event you need some technical support, we can actually pull it up on the server, and we're actually looking at what's we would hope is still installed and still configured the same way in your databases, and we can give you some guidance. But there is the software. Tool pack is, as I said earlier, it's a laptop. But in that laptop, you have all the configuration and debugging tools and servers that come with the configuration software. It's just in one prepackaged laptop that's in a bag. There's a regular version laptop and there's a hardened version laptop. Thank you, Matt. And then there's one thing that's a little unique in the industry in some ways is a memory module. This memory module sits in the center of the controller. It measures about 3 inches by 2.5 inches by an inch, and it takes a snapshot of the database every 50 milliseconds. So if you leave it in and you leave it in read-write mode, it will maintain a memory, a snapshot, if you will, of everything that's in that controller. Even if you were to make a change to your characterization table, to a tuning parameter, to an alarm point 1 minute ago, and you walked away and turned around and the controller failed, you would be able to remove that memory module, put it into a new controller, slide the controller into the housing. It will go, the memory module will go back to its last good checksum, and that's what it'll load up into the controller. And basically when you slide it in, it says upload, you say yes, you're off and running. It takes about 10 seconds once it initializes. Very nice option, and it's a standard with the 353 Retro Pack. Let's go and look at a couple questions.
So do you see the questions, Jeff?
Yeah, I do. I'm just reading them.
So we got to read them out loud because not everyone else can see them. So the first one
Yeah,
is,
I had to switch to my glasses. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I'll read it. Can I give you my 352 or 353 controller with the iWare software, and can you program it as well? And then all I have to do is mount and wire it.
Absolutely. That is in the standard configuration. We really don't mind getting it in paper when that happens, but obviously if we get it with iWare, iConfig, we have all the spans, all the ranges, all the trip points, all that information that may or may not be on a paper-based copy. And
okay, that's all I show.
Say again?
That's all the questions I show so far.
Yeah, one I see is how many loops are in the Retro Pack. The instrument has the ability to do 4 cascade loops or 6 PID loops in the 353 Retro Pack. If you use it with a ModSell, you can essentially double it. So the basics of the configuration, as I said before, it's you have the FCOs and function codes from the 352. You have them from the 353. You have the mod native configurations. The FCOs can be adjusted from the front display. And if you want to add FCs or function codes to any of the FCOs, which is one of the great things that you were able to do with the more Siemens product, you just need the configuration software to do that. And that would be VisApp. I'm not talking about iWare or iConfig. Here is, if you're familiar with iConfig, here would be a typical loop with a very basic PID loop. That's what it looks like in iConfig. And this is what it looks like in VisApp. If you look up to the left part of the screen, you'll see more 352 and more 353. These are where your function codes are. This is what we call the gallery. And this is where all your function codes reside. All your FCOs reside, and you're able to bring those down. In the same way, if you look at the bottom left, that is the native programmer. So you're actually able to bring those in as well. So basically what you do is you would bring a loop compound over, open a loop compound, and place your IO in it that you wanted to use, place your functions you wanted, the algorithm you wanted, tie it to a configured list or a Modbus list or whatever it has to do for communications, save it and download it. And it doesn't care if it's Bailey, if it's Moore, if it's Siemens, if it's Mod, if it's Taylor. It really doesn't care. Here's it expanded a little further. In this case, you can see some of the 353 FCOs. As people bring things forward to us with function codes, if there's a function code we might have missed, or a function code that sometimes people have been using in plants, we saw this a lot on the Bailey side. There were function codes they had created themselves, and they would send them to us, and we would duplicate them for them in Mod and then send them back to them. Once it's in a gallery, it's available to every customer anywhere in the world. And this is just expanding on it and showing it in another way. Here's what I wanted to talk to with controller reliability. I realize that I've had the dubious honor through all the years of working with Taylor and then ABB and now MicroMod. When I was with ABB, one of my functions was the Director of North American Services, which put repair under me. So I was quite used to ABB and the Mod product and not having a lot of repairs with the Mod product. Our repair department really was on transmitters, and flow was the bulk of our, and recorders, was the bulk of our repair business. When we bought Bailey, Fisher & Porter, the first thing I noticed on when we were doing our tours of the factories were with similar installed bases, I was seeing 30 and 40 and 50 controllers in at times of one of the aforementioned products. I wasn't used to that. In the first 3 or 4 years we were maintaining the Bailey line, we went through $1 million in raw materials and displays. In that same time period, we sold 14 displays for the Mod product. It's had an incredible run. What I like to tell the sales guys when I bump into them and new sales agencies we're recruiting, as an instrumentation person and on the management side, we look at the profit and loss statement like all businesses. And one of the things with instrumentation you always looked at, it was selling the product, it was selling spares, it was repairing the product, and it was servicing the product in the field. Well, in that case, the Mod 30 ML was a total failure because our repairs were non-existent. Our spare parts were limited. I mean, you have a 10-year stretch here, 161 parts were sold. Now, it doesn't include I/O modules. I/O modules, the great thing about the way the mod product is designed and is incorporated obviously into the 353 is the fact that you have module-based I/O. So where you have something in the process, especially when we have anything to do with the booster stations and treatment plants down in the south, where you have a high volume of electricity being transmitted through lightning and causing these sudden surges of a huge, huge level. That module becomes the sacrificial lamb. You don't sacrifice the instrument. Now, obviously, when you talk lightning and heavy hitting, you really need to have lightning suppression. It needs to be on both sides. There's some things you need to do to protect yourself, but you still have that certain amount that's going to get through. It's going to be of a lower level, but generally it'll take out the I/O on a standard controller. In this case, if it gets through, it will take out the module. It's 600 volt isolation channel to channel, so you lose one module. So for a few $100, you replace the module. You can slide the instrument out, pop the module in, slide the instrument back in, you're off and running. You haven't sacrificed the whole instrument. If you look at it, you know, it's the basic reliability, the basic form, fit, and function, the basic operability, the user friendliness, and the better displays. That's really the basis for the 353 Retro Pack. HMIs, we have one called ViewPack. It's our ViewPack series, which is our SCADA and our HMIs. So the HMIs are 7, 9, 10, 12, and 15 inch. And they come with a preset set of screens, and the screens would be a controller screen, would be an alarm screen, an event screen, trend screens, indicator screen. And then you're able to tie those to an instrument you configured. If you happen to buy one of our packs and you want the HMI, then we would provide that with you. When we configure an instrument, so when you select any one of the retro packs, at the end, the last part of the model number is who's going to configure it. You are, we are. If it's MicroMod that configures it, you get two valuable pieces. On the documentation side, you get something we call a systems design document. It's something that was created for the nuclear industry over 20 years ago. It addresses all their needs. It gives you a basic overview of what the controller does. It gives you a schematic of how the controller operates. It gives you shots of all the displays. It gives you information. My apologies, I have a little 19-pound beagle that makes a lot of noise. You have that documentation and the programming, all in a nice, concise document that you can have. It also comes with a termination drawing, a little different than what you're used to seeing. It's not just a termination drawing of the back of the 353 Retro Pack. It's also the drawing of the 352 or 353's back. So you know that you take it off of terminals B 19 and 20 and put it on the MicroMod's terminals 21 and 24. So essentially you can tape this up behind the panel if you're the installer, and you can sit right there and move them from one to another. The 353 Retro Pack has removable I/O termination, so you can take them off in your hand, pull the wires off of the 353 or 352, terminate them appropriately for the mod, slide the 352 or 353 out of the panel, slide the 353 retro pack in, and plug the terminal blocks in, power it up, you're off and running. The other thing we do is along the configuration side. If we configure a product for any customer, no matter what their overall intention is, we always put a configured list in. It's something we do while we're in there. So in the event that you decide to attach it to an HMI, or decide to attach it to somebody's SCADA, or your plant-wide, or your building management system, the configured list is there, all ready to go. You just need to purchase an OPC interface. The SCADA, this is our SCADA, and as you can see, the displays for our SCADA, they look just like ours. So whether you happen to be using the 353 Retro Pack, Steam Pack, SLC Retro Pack, these are the type of displays you see on our SCADA. It exactly mimics, even the push buttons, the manual, auto, the scroll button, all mimic what the controller actually does. And likewise with our micro DCI product, our other platform that is the basis for WaterPack, it also has the displays that mimic that. This is a very generic boiler shop, but it can be for really any industry. The tool pack, it's no secret. It's a laptop, but it's not a MicroMod laptop. It's a generic laptop made by Acer or Dell generally. It is a standard version, where there are hardened versions as well, for that shock resistant, that tough environment that you might be operating in. It comes with all the cables, anything that you would need to effectively go out and troubleshoot the instrument in the field or over a network. It comes to you all pre-set up, ready to go, communications tested. And here's the great part about it. You can go ahead and use other people's configuration and calibration applications on it. In it, at its base heart, in this today's world, you're getting a laptop with Windows 10 Professional 64-bit operating system on it. So go right ahead and place somebody else's configuration tool on it. The only caution I'll make is you have to be careful, and those of you that work with the configuration tools and the calibration tools already know this, you have to be careful that there's some of the manufacturers out there that take hostage the ports, and you just have to make sure you know how to release the ports so that you can effectively communicate with the instrument. Our customer base is truly global. The mod products, we have the honor of being the most widely used integrated process controller in the nuclear business globally. We sell hundreds and hundreds of controllers annually into the nuclear industry, from Canada to South Korea to France to Argentina, you name it. We also work with some of the boiler manufacturers, Babcock and Wilcox for one, different states where we might support the VA hospitals for the federal government, the state hospitals for the individual states, municipal power companies, some of the big energy companies like PG&E out west, or Constellation, pretty much all over the eastern side. Some of the top teaching universities in the country, Johns Hopkins, Greater Baltimore Medical, one of the prime hospitals in the Baltimore area, New York City's DEP, South Texas Nuclear, some of the big utilities, Miami-Dade, Houston, Tampa, Chicago. We have the honor of our products being in 7 of the 10 largest municipalities in the country in their water or waste department, and we're not talking 1 or 2 controllers, we're talking hundreds. The standard at NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is the Mod 30 ml, which is the basis for the 353 Retro Pack. Brief thing on me, just so you know who I am and what I've done. I'm here to answer questions. I can, the Gilson folks are well trained and have a huge, deep understanding of the more Siemens product. I dare say we learn from them on a regular basis. But when it comes to the Retro Pack, we're here to help. We're here to consult. We believe in being totally honest with you. We're going to tell you if we're a good fit or if we're not a good fit. So just let us know how we can help, and we'll be there to do it. Thank you all for listening.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. That was very informative. For those people that want to see this webinar, it will be recorded. It will be on our website, which is gilsoneng.com. It will be under our catalog under controllers. So it will be there probably within the next day. But I appreciate everyone attending. Thank you, Jeff, for your efforts. And hopefully you look and check us out, because we're trying to provide more informational webinars like this within this next month. Thank you all.